All right, everybody, we are live on Facebook. Let me just do my little arrangement, and we've got Edith Pilaf.
Pilaf?
I did say Pilaf.
Yeah.
You did.
The famous rice, French
famous
rice artist.
Piaf. Sorry, Edith Piaf.
No! We do not own the rights
So,
to Edith.
Lee, why are we playing this?
Because I just got back from France, so
Exactly.
why the hell not?
Exactly.
It's a perfect reason.
Yes.
And her voice is gorgeous. Yeah.
And we have wine, and
we
Edith
have
Piaf and wine always go well together.
So that's why we're here. And so you can see at the top there, Lee, we've got one viewer. Welcome our one viewer so far. We'll let people kind of slowly jump in. But hello, everybody on our podcast. It's Max, Tim, Felicity Wren, and then our special guest tonight is Lee Jessup.
Hello.
Thank you, Lee, for coming. Well, you didn't come that far, right? How far are you?
Not that far at all, which is, considering it's a Wednesday night,
Right.
there could be so much traffic.
Oh, God.
20 minutes. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
although
really
the
good.
argument is that it's 20 minutes to get anywhere in this town.
Not at
Which
6
is
o'clock
not
on a
true.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Just
That's a
saying.
lie. The same in London, they say it's an hour for everywhere, and I think LA it's about an hour normally too, I think.
Yeah.
Especially rush hour.
It's about 12 minutes to our favorite restaurant up there, though.
Which one is that?
Tironi? Have you ever been to Tironi?
No.
You've never been to Tironi?
Oh
No.
my goodness, as someone who really likes wine, you would love this
Oh, it's the
restaurant.
best. It's all Italian wine.
All right.
And the Italian food it's some of the best I've ever had. It's all fresh. It's fantastic.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Yes,
Tironi,
we'll have to go.
Beverly, anybody
Yeah,
who's in
next
Los
time we do
Angeles.
this at Tironi, I'm just saying.
Right, we should. Yeah. And we would probably be ignoring the camera.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. I didn't give it a very specific title, but you'll see career coach is Lee's title. James Mason, James Carthy, Phil Parker, Mike Rogers. Hi, guys. But
Phil's
Lee,
in Australia. Hi, Phil in Australia.
Phil's
Good morning,
in
Australia.
Yeah, good morning. But Lee is a career coach, meaning she covers kind of the whole gambit of issues, problems, good and bad, conflict that comes up for a writer in their career, and she walks them through it. It's you do a little bit more than a manager or an agent might do, but you don't sell that you're writers. So you're not
Correct.
going out, and so
Correct.
she's incredibly knowledgeable in terms of just the insider stuff, the behind closed doors terms that we don't always know or hear. I don't know why I'm holding that. So a lot of terms are going to be coming up when we're talking about these things. So everybody who's tuning in, I would suggest getting some kind of a piece of paper down and start making notes. And what does that mean? What does that mean? This is always an open Q&A. So if you have any questions about anything, literally, other than can you read our logline and give you notes, which we have allowed people to do at times on our
We
broadcast.
do find it does kind of send you off in another direction. though.
It does, a little bit. And because we have a special guest, we don't want to just do that tonight. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We have a lot to talk about and cover. But first, what are we talking about and what are we
Oh,
announcing?
we're going to have to do a little bit of business. We're going to do the wine first.
Well,
We
let's
are
pour
being
the wine. Yeah.
sponsored by Steel Wines.
Steel Wines.
Our beautiful Steel Wines who have a tasting.
Where's Steel out of?
Steel's out of, it's basically the Napa area.
Is it Sonoma or Santa Barbara?
It is is this, no,
Yeah.
it's the Northern California,
Santa Barbara County.
Santa Barbara County. Okay, got it, yeah.
So it's
interesting.
probably like Santa Rita Hills
Single
something.
vineyard wine was crafted by winemaker Jed Steele at his winery in Northern California,
Ooh,
Lake County.
okay.
Santa Maria Valley, it says.
Well, we'll
It
take
is
it.
interesting. Santa Barbara. You can read that, I suppose. All we
Or
know
you
is
can
that
make
Steel
it up.
Wines is really yummy. That's
Steel
the
Wines is
primary
great.
point.
And they have a tasting room, so you can actually go there
Love
and
it.
taste their wine, which is fantastic. And even in the middle of all the fires last year, they still managed to send us some wine. So good on them.
Amazing.
They
Thank
are
you.
really wonderful. This program is always in French oak barrels, which are heavily toasted during the bending of the staves.
Hey, hey.
And this vineyard is given its coastal influence, produces wine and aromas of flavours of freshly picked strawberry, Bing cherry, cloves, and spice.
Whoa.
Love it.
Sweet tobacco and spices.
Yeah, I'm a
Elegant,
Pinot person, so
cute,
So am I. So
alluring.
I think I gave Felicity a pretty big pour.
Hooray! Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Lee. Thank you, everybody,
Cheers,
for tuning
everybody.
in. We will get to
Happy Wine
the
Wednesday.
important stuff, but this is important right now. And so is Felicity's shirt. Look at that.
Oh,
Nice
you want
wine.
to see this?
love it.
I went to the dentist today to complain about some work that I had done, and I was dreading doing it, so I put on my fierce t-shirt so that I'd felt more brave. Unfortunately, I was still crap at telling them off, but it's a thought that counts.
Did you say crapper?
Crap at.
Oh, crap
Crap
at.
at.
I thought that was just an English term that I don't understand.
No. No. So
There's a lot of stuff that comes out of Felicity's mouth that I don't understand.
In a good way.
Or just in
I don't know whether it says
deaf.
more about her or about you.
It's 50-50.
I think I speak too quickly sometimes.
Yeah,
And I just spat everywhere because that wine's
Beautiful.
made my tabs laugh.
it does. You get
do you
the
know
tannins
that?
back there.
Yeah, that's a British saying, tabs laughing. So you've got the water squirty bits at the back. Anyway, how attractive, everyone. Let's begin.
Yeah.
Now that we covered squirty bits.
Yeah, everybody on the podcast, you wouldn't have known that, so... Anyway,
Let's have to start with a good squirt.
we've got some fun things to announce here, right? So we've got we just announced Table Read Hollywood.
Yes, Table Read My Screenplay Hollywood has just announced we have two
winners.
amazing winners, two female winners. One is actually from Germany originally, but she's now an LA local and she's an actress and writer.
Nice.
And then the second is, and her name is Anika Pamela. I can't remember. It's Parnell. I can't
And
remember.
it
I'm
might
so
be,
sorry,
it's
Anika.
probably Annika.
No, it's definitely
It's
Annika's,
pronounced.
that's right. It's a surname I've got wrong. And then Elaine Liu is the other one, and she is an Asian American actress. And she's
Two women.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
a writer and director, and she's doing loads of stuff, so I'm very pleased about that. One's a pilot, one's a feature. So they're going to be going to the Hollywood Pitch Fest,
Fun.
Right.
pitching their stuff as well as getting a table read there, which
Yeah,
is
that's
gonna
in
be
a
really
couple of
good fun.
weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, 4th
Yeah,
of
it's
August.
coming up.
So that's really fun. We are still open for Austin.
For
Table
Austin.
Read
So
My
if you
Screenplay
would
Austin.
like to submit, you can go to that link that James just put up, Table Read My Screenplay Austin. And it's going to be pretty much the same thing, just minus the Pitch Fest, but plus a huge party that we're going to be putting on. It's going to be,
And you get
fun.
to go to the Austin Film Festival
Hey.
with a producer's pass.
And all the winners are a part of our development slate where Felicity and I are going to be trying to get your projects out around town and sell you. I'm using air quotes. We're selling you to try to push you forward. I was just doing the math earlier, and I think we've done 17 or 18 writers since 2015 that we've gotten either repped or in one way or another or optioned.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Pretty
we
cool.
didn't start at the beginning of 2015.
No, yeah, day one, January 1st. We got one. All right, what else?
Fast track.
So we've got a fast track, final deadline August 8th, I think,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Fast track fellowship. It's kind of our flagship. We've gotten so much success recently. One of our writers, Sean, was repped. So it's funny, you know Jewel Ross,
Yes.
and he
I
was
know
one
Jewel
of our
well, yeah.
he was one of our mentors for our last fast track fellowship. So what the fast track is, if you don't know, you probably already do. But and there'll be a link up there. You can find out more information. But we picked two winners who then are set up with meetings with executives around town. Lee has been a part of our fast track fellowship as
Yep.
a mentor before. We should probably get you involved with this in the next one too, if you're available, because it's so great for the writers to meet with you first before they have their meetings.
I was going to say, what you do is you really prepare them for everything that's ahead.
Yeah,
Just
And then-
scare the living shit
You
out
have
of them. And everything's fine after that.
you have to. Yeah, but
You're
anyway.
always going to get better after that.
So
isn't
we
it?
of
That's
course
the
sent
thing.
the scripts, the two winning writers' scripts to all the mentors first. Jules, one of Jules' managers or assistant manager, Andrew, yeah, read it and walked into Jules' office and said, "You need to hang up the phone and read this right away." And Jules read it, and he called me a week before the meetings were going to happen and said, I was worried because Jules is a very difficult guy to deal with sometimes.
He's not difficult. I've known
Particular.
Jewel for 15 years.
He's very good at what
He's
he does.
super particular.
Yeah.
He knows what works for him,
Yeah.
and that's the way that he works.
I
And
guess
that's
what
it.
I mean is he's hard to read.
Oh, really?
For me,
I always
he's
feel
a
that
little
Jewel-
intimidating.
Jewel lets me into the internal monologue,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I can sit next to him and watch him watching people. I'll go, "What's going on?"
Right.
And he'll go, "Here's how this writer's fucking this up."
Right.
And he's going to give me the whole spiel
Yeah.
of what he's observing in
He's
life.
not afraid to be completely honest.
and
so
it's great. And he's
that's,
always been
That's
that
why
way.
when he called me, I was like, "What's wrong?
What did I do? I'm sorry.
What is wrong?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I read your writer, Sean, and I want to sign him today." I'm like, "Oh my God," and that had never happened before. So that was pretty exciting. So the fast track can quite literally put you on a fast track to get your career going. I don't
And
mean
for
to
the
sound
record,
salesy.
Jewel Ross, you can't be more of a tastemaker, if there is such a thing in the screenwriting world. I mean, he reps Barry Jenkins, who won the Oscar for Moonlight.
Right.
He reps Matt Aldrich, who wrote Coco.
Yeah.
Jewel is a really great guy and has amazing taste.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. He works really hard for the people that he loves. There aren't a ton of
It's
them.
kind of like
Yeah.
I equate that like when I watch football and there's some just enormous defensive back and you wish he was on your team so he wouldn't have to tackle you. That's kind of how I think about Joel. If you have him on your side, it's. Anyway, those are the type of mentors that we will be having. We have not announced our mentors yet. I'm still building those. The next Fast Track week won't be until November, but we've got a final deadline of August 8th. We'll probably extend that a little bit, but you should definitely apply if you haven't already.
Absolutely.
Creative screenwriting.
So creative screenwriting, our friends over at CS, as we call it internally,
Yes.
they just started a brand new screenplay contest. So you should go to the link that James is eventually going to put up. And Danny Roth is a producer that has done a ton of stuff, and I'm trying to remember everything. I was given notes here. So it's only $29 to enter the contest itself, but the prize-winning script is automatically going to get optioned by Danny Roth, who produced a $45 million film called The Hurricane Heist, and then the Rob Reiner directed LBJ and Leah Thompson vehicle The Year of Spectacular Men. So Danny knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time. So the winner will get optioned, which is pretty cool. And $29 to enter is nothing. So you should go to Creative Screenwriting and look at that. But you should just go to Creative Screenwriting anyway. There's a ton of free material and articles to read, and you should be educating yourself. And that's why we're bringing Lee on today, because we want you all to be smarter.
That's a nice segue.
Yeah. I've done this before.
You have!
He kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's just kind of give a very basic rundown of what you do for and with writers,
All
so
right.
they kind of understand.
So I'm a career coach. Am I looking over here?
Yeah, wherever you want.
The camera.
Yeah.
I'm a career coach, which means that I work with writers on all things career. That said, I don't believe that you can build a screenwriting career without a great script. So inevitably, some story work comes into play, but I don't fashion myself a story person. Even though I was a development executive, I was a working writer once upon a time. No, thank you.
You've been only doing this for like 8 years or so.
5 minutes. So yes, I work with writers who are anywhere from starting out all the way to big studio writers, EPs, people who sell specs, shows, yada, yada, yada.
Right. You're particular about the writers you take on, though. It's not
Yeah.
just like
I am.
anybody who wants to hire you.
I will often have an intake, which is my initial session, with just about anybody, unless right off the bat you show me that you're absolutely batshit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Short of that, I will have an intake with almost anybody to see if it's a fit, and I can tell you that I've been surprised by people that I didn't think I would connect with, who became great clients, and there are others that I thought would be a great fit with that we both ultimately felt that we weren't. At any one time, I juggle about 100 writers, 100 plus. Part of the reason for that is that a lot of my writers will kind of disappear in a room for 9 months. We'll go on a feature studio writing assignment for 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is. So I have everybody from just starting out all the way through to the very, very top. In addition to that, I also instruct and mentor for the Universal Writers Program.
That's right.
Which
That's
I
right.
love.
Yeah, and you should be looking at all of the studio writing programs and fellowships.
Well, there's really only one of that kind.
Oh, of
only
that
Universal.
kind.
There
Okay.
isn't another one that pays.
Oh,
That isn't
interesting.
a year-round commitment. 12 months on the lot with
12 months.
12
That is
months on the
interesting.
lot
Okay.
with exposure to Donna Langley, to
Yeah.
the very top brass in the studio. Granted, not every day,
Right.
but with great investment from the studio, which I'm thrilled about. They rebranded last year and started the current cycle in April.
Right.
So do you help choose, or are you just part of the
No,
program? for them?
I'm brought in to help instruct, to explore everything from personal narrative all the way through to pitching ideas, outlines, structure, everything of the sort, meeting skills, yada, yada, yada. It's a privileged position to be working with them because it's a group of hand-selected studio writers who may one day become working studio writers, but are, for all intents and purposes, working for the studio during that time, who are invested in by the studio to develop their craft as writers
Right.
on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. They select
is.
6 writers a year.
It's
It is
incredibly
with
cutthroat.
pay and benefits.
It's cutthroat.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of applications.
It's free to apply, but this isn't just like willy-nilly play the lotto.
Yeah, no, it's very cutthroat. They're very selective. We have a
Yeah.
great batch of writers. I couldn't be more excited about them.
Would you say that people come back a lot? Sorry to interrupt you, but would you say that it's about keep applying, or what's the...
Yeah, absolutely. Keep applying.
yeah.
I mean, it's the ladies who run it now, Janine Jones-Clark and Emerlyn, they ran the ABC Disney TV program for years, I believe 9 or 10 years, and then came into Universal to completely revamp this amazing program. And the TV mentality, when you apply the TV writing programs, the TV fellowships, as many writers know them, it is about applying multiple years because the odds are you are not getting in on year
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4. I have a couple writers who got in on year 1. Most of my writers
Wow.
got in on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th,
Yeah.
5th year. I have 2 writers this year who got in 5th year applying.
Right.
So it
So don't
is
give
about
up.
don't give up, keep writing, have new material so that
Right.
you can submit every year.
Now, with that being said,
Yes.
you don't need to go into the program. I love the Universal Writers Program, and we're not, we want everybody to be applying to those programs,
Absolutely.
especially this Universal Writers Program. I think what would benefit everybody here is maybe we'll first talk about some of the common issues and elements that you find when you're first working with, and by new writers, I don't mean rookie writers, but new writers for you.
Yes.
What are the common questions that come up? What are you tired of telling writers? I guess could be a good first question.
You're going to have to keep writing.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that drives me a little crazy is writers, and I'm Israeli, so I speak in strong words, so bear with me. And my hands are going to do this
Do it.
a lot.
Fine.
I'll have a writer show up and say, I wrote this script, what do I do with it? This is the one. And when I'll say, great, this is the one, what are you working on next? They'll look at me like I'm crazy. And as a writer, you should always be writing.
Right.
It should be the thing that you love and are compelled to do. And so you should always be generating product, for one. And the other side of it is that you get better script to script.
Yes.
So a friend of mine is a manager by the name of Chris Cook, and anytime he reads somebody that he ultimately passes on, but he likes the voice, he will tell them, send me your next thing. And if the writer will go back to him and say, oh, I have the script that I finished 6 months ago, they're like, no, send me your next thing.
Right.
You're going to get better. I want to see what it looks like when you get better.
Yeah.
So keeping writing, one of the things that I hear about a lot is how quickly can this happen? It's
Impatience, basically.
It's rarely said in those ways, but I mean, I've had writers come to me and say, I'm broke.
Yeah.
Or I hate my job, so I thought screenwriting. And you just go, great.
Yeah. You're going
Do
to
you
have
know
to
something
keep
I don't?
hating your job.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that requires a lot of our hard work, but is incredibly rewarding when you get there.
Well, and as an example, one of our writers that Felicity helped get an option for, the option just stalled because that company lost some of the financing, so they're going to hold off for a little bit. This is Kat. Kat is a very new writer. She started working with me, creatively on a weekly basis a year and a half ago. She had never written a script before. So over the past year and a half, we've been working through 4 or 5 projects, and we sent one to this company knowing that the writing was good, but it still needed some work, but the idea was really strong. It was very social media based, and for a young audience, horror, thriller kind of thing. And I could tell that she was really excited about the option, and it came back that it was a $100 option. It was probably going to be 12 months. And she was like, I think reality started to set in where it's like, oh, this is the beginning.
Yep.
This isn't, I've landed. This is now I have a lot more work to do. And I think most writers don't understand that, and not to their detriment necessarily. They just haven't had that experience.
Well, and I think there's also a case of delayed information.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of writers who are talking about the spec market and wanting to sell a spec.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to somebody on the East Coast who's actually involved in writer education on the East Coast, who wrote a spec, told me, I want to sell it on the spec market. I think it can bring it around $1 million. And I had to stop and say, have you looked at the market?
Yeah. Right.
Where does a naked spec go?
Right.
How much does it sell for? Does it sell? How often does this happen? There is a delay in the distribution of information. Some of it is because talking about a spec market in which material flies off the handles for millions of dollars
And you
is
hear
much
about
more
it
sexy.
because it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen
It's
anymore.
like a plane crashing. I say it all the time. You hear about a plane crashing because it never happens.
Yeah, but it's much sexier to think about this industry. It's like materials just going, and any writer can show up with a script and get a bunch of money.
Yeah.
The feature space doesn't work that way anymore.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's no appreciation for original content. I actually think original content on the feature side is heavily on the rise right now.
Yeah.
There's more interest than there's been in a while,
Yeah.
but the reward of it is not going to be structured in the same way that it was before.
In the 90s. And
Yeah.
It's kind of like the acting world in that when an actor lands a role, they're getting a job. It's not like, hey, I just got paid for all the work I've been doing for the past 10 years. No, now you actually have to do it.
Well, no, you're not getting a career either. You're just getting a job.
Yeah, right.
Michael Caine very famously said in his autobiography, he said, actors do get paid a lot. That was when they were getting paid more than they are now.
Yeah, right.
He said, but I am actually that's back pay for all the time I haven't got the job and I've done the work. And I mean, I think that's the same with any kind of artistic creative. If you start to do well at it, all that hard work does pay off, but it doesn't come from nowhere. Most overnight successes are 10 years in the making.
Absolutely, and it's what it takes, and it's perfectly natural and normal, because once you do get that, once you penetrate that space, the opportunity for growth is huge. Both on features and TV, definitely on the TV front right now. TV offers a true career with a career path where
Right.
logically you should kind of sort of know where your next job is coming from. You can buy a house and assume that you'll be able to pay for it.
Right.
There's pathing in television that never existed in film unless you're lucky enough to be on a studio.
Let's actually
studio
hit
writing
that a
list.
second so that some of the writers listening can kind of get an understanding. Because I think you know Mike Perry, actually.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy, and he was staffed a few years ago, and I think he's still kind of. I got to check in with him, but I know some of the early entry staff writer positions, 40, 50 a year. Like, it's not a crazy amount of money.
Listen, it's very straightforward. If
Yeah.
you're a staff writer on a network show that's a 1 hour, you're going to be making around $3,600 a week, which sounds like a great deal of money. But if you're working 20 weeks out of a 52-week year,
Right.
it's not that much money.
Right.
If you're on a 24 episode pickup and you're going to go 40, 44, 48 weeks deep,
Yeah, then it's nice.
hello,
Right.
then it's lovely.
So that's really important to notice. It's not like once you're on a show, you're guaranteed to be on the show forever.
no.
And it only shoots for a certain amount of
I
time.
was going to say it's not even that. It's also the length of the season.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you're contracted for a set number of weeks.
Right.
When you're starting out, you will have a contract and then you'll have a back order. So you'll be contracted for, say, 20 week with an option for a back 20.
Interesting.
Right. So another 20 weeks should the show choose to pick up the option on you. Then, if you have a multi-year contract, you will hopefully be able to move up the rungs, but you can also be disinvited. So you
Right.
may have a 3-year contract, but your showrunner may decide not to invite you back.
Which is completely their prerogative. They should be able to do that because
Mm-hmm.
the writer may not be any good and they may not work well in the room. And that's something a lot of writers don't understand
But
either. Once you get
the
in
writer
room.
doesn't have the option out of the contract if the showrunner wants him or her back.
Oh, that's interesting. They
Yep.
can't leave.
Nope. They have to negotiate leaving, and it's really in the hands of the showrunner. If the showrunner is willing, then they're
so in a
free
way,
to
it's
go.
almost like enslavement.
It's very nice, healthy enslavement, because usually when we're talking about these multi-year contracts for TV, there is usually a mandated bump every year. So every year
Right.
the writer's going to
You
move
make a
up
little
level.
more. Yeah,
when
yeah.
you go from staff writer to story editor to SC,
Right.
your salary almost doubles
Amazing.
overnight. You are suddenly receiving script fees for the scripts that you write, which you don't receive
Got
as a
it.
staff fee.
Got
So
it.
suddenly you're on a 22 episode show. You do two
So
episodes.
there's something that they should note: a script fee. Explain what a script fee is.
Script fee is the fee that you get when you actually write the episode, when the episode is assigned to you as a sole.
When you see your credit on before
Your
the
credit,
episode,
whether it's
yeah.
a written by or a co-write. A co-write
Right.
is writing with another writer, so you split the script fee. Now, we're talking right now about lower level writing positions, right? So staff writer, story editor, executive story editor,
Okay.
SE, ESE. Those positions don't get their names on the front credit unless they have a written by.
And that's up to the showrunner to decide.
And that's up to the showrunner to disperse the episodes, who's getting what.
Okay. Yeah, right,
Usually
right.
in the lower levels, you'll be asked to, before you do a sole write, you'll be asked to co-write with an upper level to see that you can do it well. Some
Right.
shows will always do co-writes for lower levels. When you move up to mid-level, co-producer, producer, consulting producer, then your names move to the front credits.
And you're on every episode.
And your name as a producer on every episode.
Right.
You no longer get paid by week. You get paid by episode, as well as your written by fees.
Got it.
So suddenly you're on a 20 episode show. You don't
Yeah.
get paid for 20 weeks. You get paid per
That's
episode,
when you're starting to pull
and
in
your
the
fees
big
go
cash.
up.
So what are the fees based on? Percentages? It's
No,
negotiated?
it's literally what the show has to play with. Network shows tend to be richer. Network and Prestige tend to have a little bit more money on them.
Prestige.
Prestige TV would be an HBO show, an FX show, some AMC shows.
Breaking Bad would be
Breaking
considered
Bad,
prestige.
Handmaid's Tale, like
Right.
those are prestige TV shows.
Where'd they come up with that term and why?
You know, that one is beyond me.
That's weird.
But
I
it's
think it
very
makes sense.
prestigious.
Well, it is prestigious, isn't it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They have
It's an
more money.
art.
They spend more money on the episodes.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Would
There's
you
more
argue
money
Game
in
of
the-
Thrones would be prestige?
yeah,
Very
Yeah.
much. so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there a kind of like a general like a length of time it takes you to do that, or is it just
No.
whether you're
It really depends. I mean, I've known writers who've had to repeat staffy 3 years, which you
Right.
don't want to, but they've had to. I've known writers who've gone from staff writer to story editor, double bump to co-producer, double bump to consulting producer. In a perfect world, you are supposed to bump one level every year.
right?
And continue to do that at least while you're staying on a single show. When you go to the next show, the hope is that you start where you left off. So if you did a year as co-producer on Good Girls. If you go to another network show, the hope is they pick you up as a co-producer, or if they really love you, they'll move you up to producer.
Right. So your quote kind of goes with you, like it would if you were an actor.
Yeah,
kind of
but
on
if you
that-
go to cable, you're going to take less money.
Right.
So on a little bit on the note, it's not a tangent really, but Sean Collins Smith, that was our Fast Track fellow. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Sean.
I missed some of these comments, guys. Hi, Anthony.
That's
Finishing
Jules'
out
new
first draft
client.
of our fourth script.
Say hi to Jewel for me. Tell him I owe him a call.
Yeah, so Lee knows your manager pretty well, Sean.
Well,
But anyway, so this is a good question because not only do we have Sean in this position, we kind of have another Fast Track fellow who's almost hopefully in this position where they wrote a pilot and, you know, a TV Bible and everything, and they have a manager or some form of producer interested in, let's take this out and try to sell the thing in very basic explanation. What happens? Like, what is...
how do you sell a TV show?
And how then does Sean get... What kind of credit is he going to get? He's not going to be made a showrunner, but
No.
will he get a co-creator? Like,
He will-
what's the...
He will, in a perfect world, he should always have a created by or a
Yeah.
co-created by.
Yeah.
The way that it works on the TV side, it's a very insulated
Listen
world.
up, Sean, so you should know.
A lot of times before a show goes out, a manager and an agent will try to pair the writer with a showrunner
Yeah.
who has the experience and the ability to actually run the show. So the statement is then not, here, look at the script, but rather, here, look at this business and this person who's run this type of business before,
Yeah, yeah.
who can now run this new business for you and make you lots of money. Then the material is taken out, most likely to production companies.
With that showrunner attached to it.
With or without, it really depends. The more green the writer, the more support you want to have.
Yeah.
So you're likely going to go to pods, so companies that have production overall deals. Try to get a production company on board that will then take it to their home studio.
Got it. Okay.
The home studio will then take it and prepare it to take out to buyers. In the TV world, the studio is the seller, the network is the buyer.
Interesting. So that's important for everybody to know. I think I kind of understood that, but it wasn't ever put that simply. So this in the movie world, then the studio
is the buyer.
The buyer.
Always.
The studio in this case is
The seller.
The seller.
Because
and,
they produce the material, which then they sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
A production
Netflixes
company-
are the buyers and the distributors,
Yes.
basically. Yeah.
A production company can bypass a studio if they have a big enough name, or if they're not beholden to a studio. So there have been scenarios where a production company went out without a studio, or a studio went out without a production company. But it's always going to be those entities setting up a meeting with the buyer side.
Yeah.
That a lot of writers get confused and say, well, I don't want to sell to those buyers. I want to sell to Netflix, Hulu, Apple,
Yeah.
Facebook. Same thing. It's a distribution channel, right?
Right.
It's a way through which to get your material out there, and they're looking for prestige products just like everybody else. I mean, Amazon pretty much cleared its slate, canceled a lot of mid-level performers that were doing fine for it, that got them some award recognition with the directive of get us the next Game of Thrones.
Right. Well, that's what they're trying to do with Lord of the Rings, which will be
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, but now you have Mrs. Maisel over there who's
Yeah.
getting them some award recognition again this year, which they haven't had. Amazon Studios has done really well on the feature front, has not been able to surface quite as well on the TV front, not in the way that Hulu has, that Netflix has.
Right.
But at the end of the day, those are buyers. Those are buyers
Yeah.
that are competing, that may be looking at telling stories in a different way than network. For sure, you're not going to see. Look, now I say this tomorrow, Netflix will announce a medical procedure.
Yeah, right.
But in all likelihood, they're not looking for the standard network storytelling. But at the end of the day, they're just another buyer.
Right. Right.
They just want an audience.
Yeah, I was just going to say if you had any questions or anything. So I think it's a good segue though, because who is buying what I think is important for everybody to know and to remember. We went through that really quickly, so everybody listening on the podcast, everybody watching live, this will be set off as a recording, so you can listen again, because we're going to be going through a lot of information here. And what's funny is that we're only about a half hour in and we've covered a ridiculous amount. It's kind of
Lee
just
is
the way of
amazing.
Lee. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
talk really fast, so I
Which,
apologize.
What I love about Lee even more is that she's a numbers nerd,
Aw.
and I wish I had the time to spend on memorizing all the numbers. And so, what do you do? What's your morning routine? Do you read the trades?
I read the trades all the time.
All the
I
time.
wake up with, Today in Entertainment, THR's roll up.
Right.
I'll read that. I'll
THR is Hollywood Reporter, everybody, so you
have. Sorry.
Yeah.
Then throughout the day, I'll have stuff come into my inbox that I will click on randomly and
Okay,
send
that
them
you
to.
subscribe to, like the.
Not even. Deadline's free.
Okay, but RSS feed kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll have stuff come in all the time that I will click on or not click on.
Right.
I am a sucker for statistics.
Yeah.
So
So what do you follow in terms of the statistics?
Anything and everything. So I love think pieces, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, anything that gives me information because things change so quickly.
Yeah.
But there's also information that can be misleading, and so it's really important to look at what's truly happening. I talked to somebody a few days ago who's like, I was a feature writer, but I'm going to write TV because there's so much more work in TV.
Yeah.
Apples to apples, is there more work in TV? Yes. Is it easier for a new writer to break into TV? Absolutely not. It's much harder.
Yeah.
It's a moving train.
Right.
You know, with features, the car's in the shop.
Right.
You fuck it up, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Somebody else will catch
Somebody
it.
else will
Yeah.
come in. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just significantly tougher. We know that network has been declining in terms of their producing of new content year
So
after
maybe
year.
let's go through those numbers. Well, how many shows per network? It's not necessarily that easy in terms of the math, but
It's not that easy, but we
relatively.
are seeing retraction. So you and
Yeah.
I spoke off camera earlier that Fox pulled back to 3 nights of programming this year, which is insane.
What are those nights, by the way?
I think it's Monday, Thursday, maybe Wednesday. So they have the Lethal Night, they have the Empire Star Night, and they have one more night, the Comedy Night.
Right, because ESPN has Monday Night Football. So, okay, yeah. Why?
So yeah, so they pulled
nights.
back for a major network. That is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's abysmal numbers. It's a testament to the fact that growth is happening in the basic cable and streaming sector.
Mm-hmm.
We actually haven't seen a great deal of growth from the premium cable, the HBO, the Showtimes of the world. They continue to do what they're doing well and steadily.
Right.
They'll add a show, they'll subtract a show. It's not going to be something. You're not going to see a 20% growth. But you know, Netflix.
They don't need to.
They don't need to.
Yeah.
They do what they do really, really well.
Right,
they
right.
have for 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
I guess also with the subscriptions coming in and everything, they don't need to. Do
Yeah.
they? It's like
Right. The Netflixes and Amazons of the world kind of needed to at first, and now they're coming back.
Listen, Jeff Bezos was just announced as the most, you know,
Gazillion
powerful rich
bajillion.
man
Yeah.
in the world.
Right.
Even though Amazon Prime crashed yesterday on Prime Day, so you know,
Oh, I
fun
didn't
times.
know
Yes,
that.
and they're working off of their servers, so it's Amazon World Services that supports their infrastructure. So you have nobody to call and blame that your
Oh
services
my
went down. But Bezos is the most expensive or the most rich guy in the world, or
Right.
at least in the United States.
Yeah.
He has tons of money to invest in this content. He wants to inspire client loyalty,
Right.
but he also wants award recognition. We're seeing growth there, but you know, you see Apple get in the game, you see Facebook get in the game.
Yeah.
You know, it's no longer the Crackle and the YouTube Red that are still trying to figure out their game. We're talking
Yeah.
about entities. Apple dedicated $2 billion this year to the creation of original
Jeez.
content.
Yeah.
Matt Chernis, who was over at WGN and History Channel, went over there to run the whole thing.
Right.
And
Have they
Matt's been-
started producing anything
Oh,
yet?
yeah.
They have. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Okay.
that's going to make room for other people, though, isn't it? Because they're going to really try and I hope there'll be gaps elsewhere because they're dragging all the best talent over there.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
have an
I know.
opportunity.
Sorry, Lee. It's so hot in here.
It's
everybody.
okay. It's LA and it's hot.
It's
and we're in a
really-
heat wave.
We don't have air conditioning in this place.
I survived Paris in a heat wave.
Yeah.
I survived Israel in June. I can do anything.
Right, we're just kicking back having some wine, so this should be easy. But shoot, I had the segue there. But
We're
This-
talking about Hulu and Facebook and producing
yeah,
content
as far
and
as the
money.
numbers, like it's just interesting to see that it doesn't necessarily mean. Oh, that's what I was going to hit. We've been getting a lot of companies reaching out to us saying, "Do you have anything in the $500,000 range for a feature?"
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people reaching out about that.
Listen, I actually
like, alarming.
find there's an evolution that's happening in features that's really
Yeah.
great. What people are not talking about, and I'm not saying this across the board, and digital content is still out there, and by digital I don't mean Netflix. I mean, you know, the smaller
Streaming and- yeah.
streaming services that
Yeah.
are doing shorter form content,
Right.
yada yada. They still exist, but they didn't have the success that everybody expected. So around 2012, 2013, a lot of feature money started funneling into digital, into these kind of 6-minute content, 3-minute content, 18-minute content with really short spurts, 11-minute episodes, yada yada yada.
Right.
With the anticipation of there will be a way to monetize it, we'll find it.
Yeah.
They never found it.
haven't figured
So
it
if you
out.
look at, and I don't want to name names because I think highly of all of these content creators, but if you think of some of the leading content creators online, and I'm not talking Issa Rae, who's been a huge success story.
Yes, amazing.
And a few others like her. There are very, very big names in online content that ultimately never made the leap. The reality was the digital didn't find a path to monetizing the 3-minute
Right.
episode or 6-minute episode.
Right.
So a lot of that money is actually coming back to film. While that was happening, a really interesting transition happened in horror. And also happened in drama, in straight character drama.
Yeah.
that just revolutionized what we're doing. A lot of people were waiting to see it in the romantic comedy front, right? What is the next stage of romantic comedy? It is a tried and true genre that, when successful, made us a lot of money. That didn't happen, but instead we got Babadook and Get Out and Quiet Place and these movies that are utilizing the format to say so much and do so much that it's become really fascinating.
Yeah, and then you can do it for so cheap. And it's funny because, like, with A Quiet Place and Get Out, there are horrific elements to it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really call it a straight out horror. It's not Texas Chainsaw.
No.
And that's the difference.
It's not the don't run in the house kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing. They started using the mind rather than just the blood.
Right.
You know,
And
so it's psychological and
themes.
thriller.
What are we trying to say about society?
And actually it meant something. It wasn't just a horror movie.
Yeah, these movies showed up and had something to say. These filmmakers utilized these formats to say something, to deliver a message that I'm not a horror movie watcher. Just to be clear, like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait for A Quiet Place. Get Out was a huge thing for me. I watched that movie 17,000 times. Babadook I've watched a bunch of times.
I have not seen Babadook. I need to see. That's been around for a while, though.
Yeah, I think it's like 2015 out of Australia.
Yeah.
Maybe 16.
So
small movie.
What is it with, because actually people are starting to come to us again for romantic comedy. So it feels like there's a, there's a resurgence.
Listen, there's always the search of what is the next evolution for romantic comedy. The closest that I think that we got so far was The Big Sick.
Right, yes.
Right.
Different points of view, different characters, different worlds. We kind of touched on that with My Big Fat Greek Wedding, went deeper and less apologetically into The Big Sick.
There was a movie a while back called Kissing Jessica Stein that kind of hit that. It was big, but it never hit the Big Fat Greek Wedding kind of level. But that's what we're trying to say, that it's a different kind of romantic comedy. There is romance and there's comedy involved, but there's some form of statement that's trying to be made.
Absolutely. There are things that the movie's saying. There's, there are movies like Silver Lining Playbook that is a dramedy with romantic elements sewn into it that are great. And I think there's still the search for that evolution. And I think that with everything that is happening in the world, people are looking for a little bit warm and fuzzy. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I'm suddenly watching half-hour comedy, which just has not been my shtick. Yeah. And it's happening.
I know. That's why we watch like HGTV, and I'll watch Ghost Adventures because I just want to forget about crap. I don't want to have to think about it.
I'm back with Frasier. I'm always back with Frasier.
The Good Place. Just watch The Good Place.
The Good Place is so good.
The Good Place.
It's so
good.
The
Good Place makes me question my life. I had a terrible dream that after watching it for the first time, I actually went through. I was like, so what's your place in? Where would you be? Where would you be in it?
Yeah.
Would I be in the good place or the bad place? I thought.
A couple
to be
questions.
honest, I thought
Phil is
sure, that'd be great. Okay,
Phil is saying it's about being your own PR person when you don't have an agent or a manager and you don't live in LA, for sure. So some context. Bear with me. When you're getting hired by producers but you don't yet have an agent or manager, you need to buy your own PR person in order to keep finding gigs.
You need to buy your own PR person?
Yeah, I don't know about buy. My bad. Be your own PR
See, it's
person.
a couple of little letters.
Yeah.
Maybe Trump was right.
In order to keep finding gigs. Yeah, so posting success stories.
I can't believe I just said that, by the way.
Oh, God.
My husband may divorce me tonight.
Oh, wow. Phil, you're writing a lot here. Let's see I got a glare of the sun here. Another thing I've been doing, it's written a blog. Yeah, that blog on that day. So basically, here we got questions.
Question 1.
Do you think what I'm doing is worthwhile in terms of
writing a blog,
doing
different things? Thank you.
That blog may not get you hired, but the hope is that one day when a producer Googles me and visits my site, they want to hire him. And if it's not a waste of time, do you think mentioning the producer's name or production company in said blog, assuming I have permission to do so, is a good idea? I'm essentially creating my own press release.
Here, my thing is focus on scripted. At the end of the day, there's a lot of how do I get people to pay attention to me. The problem with the interwebs is that there's so much content. It's going to be hard to find you. It's going to be hard to... Nobody of any worth is going to be sitting around going, where do I find my writer today?
Yeah, right.
Material is going to be coming at them.
Right.
It's great to have essays. It's great to have short stories. It's great to have plays, but make sure that your scripted stuff is great. Because if they come to you from a short story, they're going to want to see scripted. Yeah. I personally am not a huge advocate of websites for writers. I've never talked to anybody of my friends in representation that said, oh, I want to talk to that writer. Does he have a website?
Right.
They want to look at scripted. They want to meet you in the room. They want to find out what you're like. They're going to talk to other people and say, is this person normal? Are they presentable?
Yeah.
Are they good in a room? Can they give a good meeting? Like, those are the things that matter.
I mean, for the writer, it's about the content. It's about what you've created, and what it's, and then of course, yeah, if you're especially for TV, the TV.
It's about
world,
the content and it's about the person.
Yeah,
It's about the,
personality.
you know,
How
if it's
well
an
will you work with
agent,
somebody.
exactly, as an agent or manager, am I comfortable putting you in a room with my friends?
I was
Am
gonna
I going to
say,
be
yeah.
embarrassed when my friends call me and say, what is wrong with this person? Why did you send me somebody who seems like he has Tourette's,
Right.
but I'm not really sure? You know, you're going to want to feel comfortable on the personal level. The person can give a good meeting, can tell the personal story, can communicate and relate, because Jewel Ross actually is famous for saying that the job of a writer in a meeting is to make the person they're meeting with fall in love with them in 45 minutes.
Right.
That's really hard, and that takes working on meeting skills, on personal narrative,
Yeah.
on doing the research on the other person. You know, have there been people who've been discovered from an essay or a blog or this or that? Yes, but I find that those are the exceptions.
And that essay or blog probably got some kind of viral sort of thing,
Yeah.
and everybody heard about it, and then the manager went after them because of the number of people that have read the blog.
Yep.
There's a built-in audience or something.
Yeah, but the numbers that we're looking for today in terms of impressions on online content, I'll talk to managers who'll say, like, do you know anybody who has, you know, like 1 million views on their blog, on blog posts?
Yeah, right.
That's a big ass number.
Right.
So if they're looking for that as an incentive, they're looking for a large following that they believe can then translate to an audience, as
Right.
opposed to, those 1 million views say like the writer's good.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about finding the audience, isn't it? And someone
Yeah.
that comes with a built-in one, they're like, oh, hooray, that's thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why a lot of agents and managers actually will say to the writer, oftentimes, it's a great idea, but it's better as a book. So why don't you go do the book part and publish it and sell 50,000 copies, and then great, we can totally go to series on
Right.
this.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of do the heavy lifting, so it makes this an easier sale. It's not at all implying that there's a laziness on representation part. There's simply an understanding of how hard it can be to sell.
Right.
So if they can put the onus of the heavy lifting on the writer.
Because the end game isn't the manager or representation. I think that's really important
Yeah.
to know. And I know because we know Phil. Phil knows that, so it's not like I'm correcting you, Phil, or that we're correcting you at all. But the question is kind of, in general, what can a writer do to get noticed is really what
Yeah.
it is. And I hate saying it, and Lee's going to agree with me.
Super simple.
Write a
Super
great
simple.
script.
Yep.
It's such a horrible answer, but it's true.
It's absolutely true. And the belief in the industry today, and I know this from talking to a ton of agents, managers, executives who are just in my world, there's a lot of good work out there. There's not a lot of great.
It's very hard to find great.
Yeah.
It's very easy to find good work, honestly. I'm doing air quotes again. Good is so relative, but
But I can tell you that when I read a great script, I know it on page 2.
yeah, oh yeah.
Like where you're like, oh shit, what's happening? What's going on?
I have
Okay.
to keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Well, I just feel it's this. There is still a market for the good scripts. Do you know what I mean? We've been talking about this too. I mean, because
Of course, yeah.
but again, it's about finding them, getting to the right producer, getting it to the right. Because not all the TV. Because that's I think how writers feel is they're going. I watch TV, I see movies, and they're crap. And what I've written is much better than that.
Right.
So how can I get it to those people? And there is this kind of layering to the.
But that's
business.
where writers have to remember, and I get it. I mean, I watch movies, I'm like, what in the world were they thinking?
Yeah.
Nobody sets out to make a bad film.
That's true.
Because the thing is,
Right.
whoever made that bad film lost whatever job they had.
Right.
Unless it was
somebody
somehow a
got-
runaway hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody sets out to make a bad film, but at the end of the day, and what people have to remember is that while we want you to follow structure and there are certain expectations of a film, there is no formula.
Mm-hmm.
I remember 1 million years ago when I was working development, I worked for a production company that had a lot of success in the box office and won an Academy Award. So they purchased a book that was very popular. They brought in 3 actors, 2 of whom won Academy Awards the year before. They brought in a female director who was slated. Everybody was talking about she's going to be the first female director.
Hot shot, yeah.
To win an Academy Award, yada yada. Like they could not have
better
secured
team.
better assets
Yeah.
with the idea of winning an Oscar. And that movie was such a fucking disaster.
Which
It was
movie
so
was it?
I can't.
Come
Here we
on,
go.
Lee's famous for that.
Nope.
I want to know.
Not doing it. Too many
Just
people
gonna keep
know
it
I'm not very
secrets.
involved. But it was to the point that it was such a cliche. It was so bad. I remember I was out of the country on another movie when that one was cutting, so they sent me a cut to see, and I was watching it.
Well, this is when you were a development executive.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And I was watching it, and I was with my then boyfriend, and I started saying, okay, so the actor's going to do this next. Now he's going to turn, he's going to frown, and he would turn, he would frown.
My
It was
goodness.
such a cliche, and it was so bad. And it just goes to show you that there is no guaranteed path to securing that. Nobody wants to make a bad movie. Like,
No.
nobody wants to apologize for their filmmaking. And believe me, I've met people who've had to apologize for their filmmaking.
Yeah.
That's never fun.
Yeah.
Everybody tries to find something good and different. Oftentimes they're wrong.
Yeah. I think to Felicity's note is that I would say a lot of the scripts that we have on our development slate are good, a couple great. You know, most of them are at the good level, and what we've been able to do is talk to, I hate to use the word buyers, but managers, producers, and say, look, we've got this writer who's new, relatively green, project's a great idea, the script needs a little work. If the producer knows that going in, it's a shift in their
Yeah, of course.
approach, and they're like, you know what, I agree, I see the potential here, let's talk to the writer. And suddenly there's a relationship that's formed, and those relationships are sometimes worth more than some of the jobs you hope to just get an assignment for $10,000.
Totally.
Because then suddenly you're building a relationship and whole, you know, for your
And
whole
it's the
career.
mental switch in your head and the fact that you suddenly
Yeah.
feel believed in.
There's a little bit of validation.
And
yeah.
that makes a difference, I think, in even how you approach your work. Andy Byrne, our fast track fellow, who is
Right.
doing very well with 2 projects in production,
Yeah.
and he won 2 years ago to the fellowship.
Yeah.
I think something definitely switched him in, all our fast track fellows, because it's
totally. Yeah.
being told that you're good. You suddenly go like, because somewhere in you know you are, or there's a good story to tell,
Or you
there's
always
a,
question
you know,
that you're not.
Yeah.
No matter how many times people
That's
tell you
gonna
you are.
happen
Exactly.
for the rest of your career anyway. Yeah.
So it's kind of nice when someone else tells you, and then you can just allow that to bask in you a bit, and then for your voice to shine.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it is very much about voice and then being good in the room.
Yeah.
It's about voice. It's also about practice, though.
Right.
It's also about putting in the hours and getting really good with your craft and really becoming masterful. Not to use that as a cliche, but it is about getting to a place where you can massage story in such a way that elevates it. And you can nobody is born a perfect writer. I've yet to meet somebody who showed up
Right.
a fully
Right.
realized brilliant writer. And
No.
I'm lucky enough to work with a bunch of brilliant writers, but
Yeah.
I promise all of you, I read their outlines. I know when shit's not clicking.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is a discovery that writers have to go through,
Yeah.
and there is a training that writers have to go through. A lot of writers are impatient with that and just want to get there already, right?
Right.
Want to sell, want to get the agent, want to get the manager, want to get the job.
Right.
You find that writers, as much as writers hate hearing it, no writer breaks when they think they're ready to break, but they often break when they're ready to break.
And they don't realize that.
No, they thought they were ready
Yeah.
like 2 years before,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's the truth of it.
Yeah, yeah. This, and thank you, John. This has been an excellent conversation with great information. Lee is a wealth of information. We have maybe 10 minutes or so left. I did want to.
I was going to say, how can they find you? What's the best way to find you?
My website is really the fastest way, so leejessup.com. I try to make it easy.
There's
You
a
have the
link
little-
here down in the bottom of the comments. There's
Yep.
a pinned comment there.
So yeah, it's real simple. There's a ton of information there. I blog all the time because I'm kind of like Donkey and Shrek. It's making me shut up. That's the problem,
Right.
as my kids will attest. But no, listen, I'm a child of this industry. Like I remember Jeannie Bowerman interviewed me once for Script Magazine. She was like, "What surprised you about Hollywood?" I was like, "Nothing. This is the
Yeah,
only thing
right.
I know.
Yeah, right.
This is the only thing that's normal to me."
Yeah.
Look, I've been ridiculously lucky in that I know a bunch of good managers because I knew them 15 years ago and they're
Right.
assistants living out of their cars.
Yeah.
It's a fun job. It's a fun industry.
What kind of story are you interested in?
Story of a writer or a story in a script?
So I guess
In a script.
In a
On
script,
the
yeah.
screen.
So what's the thing that makes you excited to go to the movies? And
What makes me excited to go to the movies? Anything that feels, it sounds so broad. I'm looking for something that's different, that's new. I'm looking for new voices, for telling stories or stories about worlds or characters that I haven't seen before that enlightens me and that interests me. A lot of people will write a story about a character you've never seen before. Like, I wrote a story about the henchman in a fairy tale. but nothing interesting happens to that henchman. So
Right.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right.
The
But-
concept is not enough.
Yeah, but I'm looking for stories told, world exposed characters shared with me, thematic choices that will really just excite me. I mean, I sat on a plane from Europe a couple of weeks ago, and I saw Call Me By Your Name, and I sobbed my eyes out, and I saw Victoria
wow.
and Abdul, and I sobbed my eyes out, and I saw Love, Simon, and I sobbed my eyes out, and it doesn't have to be big for me.
It's a
like
long flight.
It's a long flight. It's
Yeah,
a
it's a long
12-hour
flight.
flight.
And you feel like crying when
Yeah,
you're
right.
sometimes.
Totally. But you know, I also watch Ant-Man and the Wasp and Black
Yeah.
Panther because I have 2 kids, and guess what? That's what we do.
Yeah.
I find it to be part of my job to watch material. I am admittedly watching a lot more television content at the moment.
Kind of have to. I mean, that's the way of the industry.
That's
right
the
now.
fun of the job. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, the joke is my husband will walk into the bedroom, which is usually where I work. And if I'm watching a show that he's never seen before, he's like, "Ugh, are you working again?" Yes, honey, I'm working.
So when you're watching, are you able to read your writer stuff and email stuff while also watching the show?
I try not to.
Okay.
Sometimes I will.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not that good at I'm okay on multitasking with some things, but if I'm watching a show, it's why I can't have a TV in my bedroom because I can't fall asleep watching a show. I'll just watch it.
Oh, I can fall asleep watching a show
Oh,
like
I
nobody's
can't.
business.
Even if it's terrible, I'm like, well, what happened to this? You know.
Yeah, no. I love yelling at the TV if I can.
Of course,
There's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
season finale of Handmaids. Like my husband and I just
we need
lost
to.
our
I need
shit.
to see that. Yeah, I haven't
So good,
seen that yet.
so good. No, but I think the joy of my job is that at the end of the day, I deal in content and good people all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
Could
I
be
think,
worse.
and we'll get to some of these questions, Jasmine and James. One thing that popped in my head when you were talking, even before you asked your question, Felicity, but what kind of makes the difference between a good and a great script?
I wish I
It's-
could tell you.
And nobody really. I don't.
I
know
wish
the
I could
answer.
tell you.
But
And
I've had a couple calls recently with writers where, and these were some of my stronger writers who have been doing this for a long time, and they were at least in this time period, they were still in kind of first draft mode with these ideas that we'd kind of gone through outlining. And the difference between Lee and I have creative calls and I'm just giving notes on a weekly basis. I'm not coaching them in terms of all the numbers that Lee knows. And
in terms of the career and the,
The
psychology
career
and the
and
pathology and the habits
it's a
and the
whole
practices.
different thing, yeah. But I should try to learn those numbers. But
Lee basically holds the hand all the way through it. You just push their pen around.
a little bit. I mean, I was noticing, the point being that creatively speaking, what I notice is that a lot of writers don't cut through the surface of what really is going on in their project in terms of not only themes and the message you're trying to say, but how you're then presenting that message through the characters' actions and responses of things. And a lot of the responses are just kind of rote or relatively expected, and you're losing the chance to go deeper into what the whole theme is and the reason you're telling the story. And sometimes you need somebody to go, no, this is why you're writing the story, and the writer doesn't see that every time. Because it's hard, because you get caught in this whole,
Yeah.
you have so many things you're trying to say and do, and so
I
you're
mean-
like, I'm just going to throw some dialogue out.
You're familiar with the term early and often, right? Exposing the work early and often, from
Yeah.
concept, from treatment,
Yeah.
from outline, getting as many outside eyes into it to give you
Right.
perspective
Yeah.
on how your material is being received. Truthfully, I don't have a formula for writing an amazing script. I've seen amazing writers who've generated amazing work also generate just work that's okay.
Right.
I think every writer has a bad script or 5 in them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Unless you're only going to write one script, you're not going to be
Yeah.
defined by any one script.
Which you could argue then that it's still not going to be as good as it could if you tried to write.
But it's
3 or
same as
4 hours.
directors. So
Yeah.
like Steven Spielberg is an amazing director of 5 of his many other movies
Yeah.
that he has made.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
get better from script to script. And
Yeah.
every artist, and I don't use that word loosely or often, but every artist needs a trash can.
Yeah.
And not everything is going to hit on the same level. And writers
Right.
need to have the freedom for that, and also the ability to let go and move on to the next project when they realize one's not working. That doesn't mean 5 minutes in you get some bad feedback, you're like, "Pfft, I'm done, forget
Right,
this.
right.
But also be honest with yourself. And when you see that you're working hard on a piece of work and it's not chugging along, and you're not managing to do what you want to do unless you know how to fix it,
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, maybe go back to it in a year.
And it's kind of this notion that a lot of new writers have, and I hate to be so general here, but when you finish the first draft of your first script, it really does feel good,
It feels great. You should go and have a glass
and you
of wine.
should totally celebrate. But new writers who have not written 10, 11, 12 scripts, they accept that first draft or maybe kind of rewritten second draft as it.
The draft.
Because it feels so good. They're like, no, this is it. And you're wrong. And I hate to just be so across the board. But
Better
it's
you than
not as good as it can be.
Yeah.
It's fine, but fine isn't going to get you a career. And so that's what I mean by cutting through the layers and really figuring out what am I trying to say. What are the subtleties in the scene that I'm probably saying more than I need? What if they don't say anything in this moment? What does that say? You know, so
Listen, at the end of the day, it's a craft. If you're a woodworker, your first chair would suck.
right.
Yeah.
I know mine would.
It would take a little time.
Yeah.
So take a little time.
Yeah.
I think you'd just be good at an ashtray, the first one. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Your chair would be really above
A lot of sandpaper.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah.
you can get.
Well, so hopefully Jasmine's still around, but the easy answer to Jasmine's question, does a
Which-
horror script have to be 80 to, absolutely not. There doesn't have to be any kind of set. A Quiet Place was 68 pages, I think,
But that's John Krasinski, and
Completely
he can,
different
and he
situation.
can get away with it.
and you can get away
For
with it.
a new writer.
For
There
a
was a
new
script
writer.
2 years ago
Yeah.
that made the rounds that was 52 pages. There was a known writer and it had no dialogue in
Right.
it. And it was 52 pages about wolves and it sold.
Right.
But it was not a new writer. For
There
new
are
writers,
caveats for everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
For new writers, there is an expectation 90 to 110. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
go up to 120.
And for especially for a horror, 110 is probably more
Yeah,
than
and
you
120 puts you at the bottom of the pile
need. Yeah,
because that's just that much more work.
yeah,
So 90 to 110,
And
like,
also keeping the suspense going for 120.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm okay seeing like here's the example of the mentality in a reader's head because we, you know, Lee and I read a ton. Felicity's just finished reading like how many scripts that you just read. The mentality is if I see a script at like 87 pages, I'm like, okay, that'll be easy to read, but they might be missing something. If it's like less than like 80 or something, I'm thinking, what am I reading? Like,
Yeah.
What I don't, is this a script? If it's 122 pages compared to 119, I'm literally more comfortable at 119. It's 3 more pages, but there's a mentality.
Yeah, there's just a mental.
Yeah.
You know, I recently read a script from somebody who came to me through a referral. The script was, I think, 85 pages, but it was so overwritten and so cumbersome that I
Right.
had to talk to the writer and say, listen, at the end of the day, you have maybe 40 pages, 50 pages
Right, of content.
of picture.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have more than that. You don't have
Right.
an hour.
Yeah.
You don't have plot. You're describing your action very meticulously, but you just don't have the plot.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to figure out how to balance plot and economic storytelling and all of those things to
Right.
fill out those pages. I mean, you guys probably know this, but you know, executives get a script whether they open it physically or they flip through on an iPad. We look
Right.
to see how dense are the descriptions.
Yeah.
We look to see whether we have a lot of long monologues. That's going to tell the reader right off the bat whether or not they are going to take this writer seriously.
If for all 3 of us here, and any reader from any company or management company, they've done it so often, they've opened scripts so many times, you should also be opening so many scripts so you can see the difference between great and okay or terrible.
And it's beyond that. Writers should be reading what's in the market, right? Every
Yes.
witer
Yeah.
who's listening to this should be reading.
And where can they go to find those scripts?
Email me. I have a folder of all the lists, all the scripts that make it onto the blacklist 2017.
It's
Start
Lee
there.
at leejessup.com.
Really simple.
Yeah.
But there are repositories everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not reading Tootsie, with all due respect to Tootsie.
Right.
Like, you can read Tootsie, it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
But we're not making Tootsie today.
Yeah.
Not now.
So
yeah.
you have to read the material that's moving around
Right.
the industry today.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be aware of what's going on. But as far as oh shoot, I had a little
Sorry, I totally
No,
cut
no,
you
it's
off.
fine.
It's me. I told you, donkey.
It's all right. It's all right. This has been chock full of I think it was in some reference to James' question of, well, he's not really a question, but James McDonald says, I have multiple scripts I want to sell, but I have no idea on what to do in that part of my career. I think every single writer on the planet has multiple scripts that they want to sell.
The
They don't know what
reality
to do.
today is that writers don't outright sell in the way that
Right.
they used to. The path to screenwriting success today is usually, we have roughly 1,800 writers in the feature space that are making a living, right? That are getting paid as feature writers. We move maybe 80 to 100 pieces on the spec market every year, and I'm not talking about movies that have options that then go in front of the camera,
Right,
but
right,
rather spec sales. So selling is not what it used to be, and the implication there is that 1,700 writers are making their living otherwise.
Right.
The way they're making their living is assignments. Whether they are paid to write something that they pitched, or it's an adaptation, or it's a page one rewrite, or it's a punch up, or whatever it is. So the path is usually for feature writers today, and there are variations, so I'm not saying this is the only way, is getting out there, finding representation, getting the writer into rooms for general meetings, through general meetings, starting to carve out relationships that hopefully to writing assignments.
Right.
Fan base is building, and so when there's the right spec for the market, reps will take it out there and try to sell it. Of course they want to sell it. But very few companies are taking chances specifically on naked specs.
I mean, I think the quick answer, James, is look at every script you have as a resume, as a way to show your talent, what you can do.
It's your body of work.
Yeah, it's your body of work. It's very difficult to peel yourself away and go, oh, this may never be a movie. But you sometimes have to kind of do that because there's a good chance it's never going to be a movie. But is it a good enough read for somebody to read it and go, you know what, this writer has something. I have this project that needs a writer assigned to it. That's just as good or better than just selling the script out.
And it betters your chances to sell at a later point because you have fans.
Right.
You have people who want to work with you, who want to stay in business with you, who are going to be that much more eager to read from you.
Yeah.
It's a different situation.
Yeah. Well, we could keep going like crazy. It's 8 o'clock. There's so much to cover, but thank you, Lee, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. You know, I try to do at least one thing every year with Lee. I think I'm going to have to hire her just to kind of get maybe not even creatively. You do read scripts for writers.
I read all the time.
And you do give creative notes, so it's not just career counseling.
No, it goes back to the idea that you can't build a career without good work under you.
Right.
There are writers that I work with that I've never read. It was their choice, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But if writers choose to engage me, I'm not going to go as deep into story as you do. So if we are looking for a story person, I gladly send people to you.
Right.
But I am going to give what I call broad strokes verbal notes.
Yeah.
What bumped me, what worked for me,
Right.
where I think the script has
I
place.
sometimes wish I could do that. It's a little easier.
It's the luxury of the job.
Yeah.
I also, today's Wednesday. I saw 8 people today. So I don't have the
Literally
luxury.
in
yeah,
person.
face to face.
Yeah, wow.
So I don't have the luxury of sitting down and typing up notes, which is very time consuming.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the best use of what I provide for my clients.
Right. Well, if you have any questions for Lee, it's lee@leejessup.com.
That's the email.
And it's leejessup.com for the website. Yeah. If you have any questions for Felicity and I, it's felicity@networkisa.org, max@networkisa.org. If you have questions about my consulting, it's max@thestoryfarm.org. But thank you, everybody, for coming in and tuning in. And Roger, thank you for the nice
to the contest.
compliment. Yeah, Universal Writers Program. What is the
Not
website?
just that's not up yet. I'm talking
it's
about
not up
fast
yet.
track and table
Okay.
read. Do that.
Fast
I was going to
track.
say that's the other thing is like build your body of work. If you have these amazing scripts, then get someone else to take some notice of them because people are looking for contest winners.
Build your pedigree.
Yeah.
Give people reasons
It
to
makes a
read you
difference.
before it's a good log. Beyond it's a good log line. If you come in and you say, "I won fast track," they're going to pay more
I was
attention.
going to say, people love in the industry for other people to say yes first.
It's like the mafia. Somebody else has to vouch for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like the mafia.
It is. Yeah. All right, thank you, everybody, and we will be back, I think, in a couple weeks, or maybe next week. We have to look at the calendar, but just stay tuned to our ISA Facebook page, Twitter. If you don't follow us on Twitter, it's just Network ISA. You should. And we're on a delay here, so it looks funny that we're watching. I'm not saying that. Anyway, everybody on the podcast, thank you for listening, but we'll be back in a week at least 2, so we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So long, farewell.